Trying to sell your old car? Instead, donate your vehicle to Heritage for the Blind. Pickup is free and your donation is tax deductible. Just call 1-800-956-0327. Heritage for the Blind accepts cars, vans, trucks, and boats, whether they run or not. Donate your vehicle and you'll receive a free 3-day vacation voucher to over 50 locations. Call 1-800-956-0327. That's 1-800-956-0327.
This is Willie. This is Willie Lawson.
Got lynched, and you had a voter registration worker walking the roads of Poplarville this morning, walking for freedom.
Certainly George Green and MacArthur Cotton and Jesse Harris, Frank Smith have to envision whether or not they're going to go into these small towns like Athens and Macomb, and whether they're going to organize in these towns. Because what's involved in that decision is the problem of overcoming fear.
All right. Well, it is summertime. My name is Willie Lawson, and this is the Rational Black Man Show. Oh, goodness, what a day. Hey, I feel like I just left here. I was here a minute ago. Like I haven't gone anywhere. Oh, goodness. Well, this is a special edition of the Rational Black Man Show. We normally air on Tuesday at noon and then again on Saturday at 4:30. Well, this week's been kind of special, actually. This week I was on Tuesday at Eastern Standard Time, p.m., and we're doing a special show here on Thursday at noon with a rant about 15 minutes ago. So things are changing, but I believe that they're changing for the best. I think that we are growing here on BTR and definitely here on the Rational Black Man Show. Things are changing at lightning speed. Today, I am honored. I'm starstruck, really. To be perfectly honest with you, we have a very special guest who we're waiting to call in, Jessie Lee Peterson. For those of you who do not know, who've been living under a rock or only watching CNN for the past few years, Jessie Lee Peterson is the president and founder of the Brotherhood of a New Destiny, BOND. It's an American group dedicated to promoting responsible fatherhood amongst African Americans. He has hosted a cable TV program and is a syndicated radio talk show. As a matter of fact, his show just ended just now, so we're going to give him a little break to get decompressed before he gives us a call. He's a member of the Choose Black America organization of African Americans who oppose illegal immigration. He's a member of the advisory board of Project 21, an African American conservative organization, and a former board member of the California Christian Coalition. Reverend Jessie Lee Peterson is the most courageous, outspoken critic of the civil rights establishment in America today. He's often referred to as the antidote to Jesse Jackson. Reverend Peterson is the author of the National Day of Repudiation of Jesse Jackson, that event. Reverend Peterson is also the man behind of the NAACP, believing that the organization is nothing more than a tool for the largely social elitist Democrat Party. Reverend Peterson is the founder and president of the National Profit Organization, of course, BOND, that we talked about. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. And you've seen him on all the major TV networks, such as Fox, CNN, MSNBC. He's consistently leaving his liberal counterparts in knots. He's unflappable, and his can-do attitude, absolute commitment to the truth are perfect medicine for a value-challenged society. He's what I call hardcore. he's a man who, one of my phrases is, he is not kidding. He is simply not kidding. He is straight up. You know how he feels. There's no political thing going on. He is simply say what he wants, what he needs to say, in no uncertain terms. And that is just, and I believe that's what's missing, not just from the political scene, just the scene in general, because there's always doesn't it seem to be that there's always a spin? There's always an angle. There's always something that someone is trying to get. There's always something. And you always have to dig through what they're saying and go back on their history to find out what their real position is, as opposed to just them just saying it. Just tell me what you believe. Tell me what you think. And then from that point, quite frankly, the individual can go ahead and make their own decision from there. Reverend Peterson has written a number of articles. And, to give you a taste of where he stands on any number of issues, I'm just going to read you some of the titles. This is just the titles of the articles. The first one that comes up is Abortion, Black Genocide. Black Americans die while their leaders fiddle. How about this one? Is there one white man who has any courage? AIDS, Black leadership's grand hustle. What else? Driving Bentleys and crying racism. Kwanzaa, racist holiday from hell. That's pretty straight up. That's pretty no nonsense. That's pretty straight up. Desperate times make black leaders more desperate. Jesse Jackson's illegitimate children. Wow. I'm talking wow. Just the titles of the articles. Just the titles of the articles sort of let you know, in no uncertain terms, how this gentleman thinks, how he feels, and his passion for the truth. Because he's a man of God, and he believes, as I do, that the truth will make you free. That God joys in the truth. So he'll be on in just a minute. Like I said, he just finished his show, his national show, at about 8 minutes ago. So we talked, and we will give him some time to do that. Now, but we, family, have some business to take care of here. Now, in my rant about 15 minutes ago, we talked about TV One, and I'm going to mention this to Reverend Peterson as well, how TV One has decided that they are now the Obama network. If you go to their website, and I'm going to put the link here, you need to go to the website, and you need to think of what would be the effect, the same effect if you went to the CNN website, or the Fox News website, and saw that. If you have a computer and you're in the chat room, of course you can go there. But you need to go if you're listening in archives, you really need to go right now to the TV One website and check that front page out. What would be the effect if Fox News decided, because of their listenership, they have 93, 95, 97% white males, whatever it is, that they were just simply just going to say, hey, we're just going to cover the white guy. That's all our viewers really care about. They don't really care about the black guy. We're just going to cover the white guy. And whatever the white guy does. What would be the effect? What would happen? What would people say? I think it'd be actually rather interesting. I think it'd be actually humorous because I've got that sixth sense of humor. So you really need to check that out. You really do. So it bothers me greatly, actually, because this particular entertainment channel has decided to get into the foray of politics and wants a buy from the community and even the African American Republican community, because they're just entertainment and this is a historical event. Well, then you need to cover it after it's over, and that way you can document it all, and then you could have a great television show. And then later on you could have interviews, but you can't be there live pretending to be news while under the guise of entertainment. I don't think you can have it both ways. I just don't believe that you can have it both ways. And this is sort of a weird area. We haven't had this yet, that a network, a cable network, has decided to do this. So I'm not so sure. Now listen, I'm not really excited necessarily about, new regulations and that stuff, because that's the whole point. We want to keep government out of our lives, but what we do want to do is we want to make sure that people are doing the right thing because it's the right thing to do, not because they're being forced to by government, but it's the right thing to do. And if TV One is going to decide to get into the political arena, then they have to behave just like everybody else. You can't pick and choose. TV One, their CEO had said that if Hillary Clinton had won the Democratic nomination, TV One would not be covering the Democratic convention. I said, "What?" I read that and I was like, "Wow!" So, you're only covering this because this is an African American candidate. You're only covering the black guy. You're only covering the black man because he's a black man. Because, and they'll say, no. You understand? This is an event that is history breaking. No. There were other events, and there are other African Americans to be celebrated on both sides of the aisle. On both sides of the aisle. As I remember, in this current administration, there have been 2 secretaries of state. Is that true? They had something in common. You know what that was? They're both black. How about that? You had 2 secretaries of state, and they were both. Weren't they both black? Am I getting that wrong? Wow. Everyone or BET, or quite frankly, anyone else, celebrate that great achievement. And I didn't see George W. Bush getting any kudos for it. I didn't see him getting any kudos for it from the NAACP, from Jesse Jackson, from the Black Congressional Caucus, or TV One, or anybody. Anybody who always comes to the fore when there's some imagined slight against African Americans. I didn't see anybody write a letter, get on a TV show and say, hey, listen, we may disagree on policy, but I do appreciate George Bush for keeping, I hate this word, keeping diversity in his cabinet. Didn't see that. Didn't hear that. Now TV One is decided because this is the first African American candidate that they're going to cover the convention only to cover him. Well, here's the deal. If the convention was still at odds, if they were going tooth and nail and we didn't know what the outcome was going to be, you may be able to convince me that that may be something that was newsworthy. You may be able to convince me of that. You might. But the fact of the matter is, he is, quote, the presumptive nominee. The reality of this situation is what? This game is over. Now we're just having the after-game pep rally. I told you before, here's what's going to happen. You know, they're moving his acceptance speech across the street to where the Denver Broncos play football. So they're going to be 70,000 crazed out, just totally bonkers Obama maniacs in this football stadium. Hundreds of news cameras. When you get on your television and start flipping through the networks on cable, you will not be able to get away from this scene. It's going to be a pretty amazing scene. And what the scene is supposed to depict, that it is so obvious that this is over. It's over. We've already decided who your president is going to be. Get over it. That will be what it looks like. And TV One has just decided to hop right in on that gravy train. Because it will be more like entertainment, really, than anything else. Behind their nominee will be the Clintons. Maybe Bill will have his saxophone and play along. How fun will that be? You know what? And they'll be waving, and there'll be the little Star Trek guy, Dennis Kucinich, and he'll be waving, and it'll look like a jib-jab video. It will. And it'll seem like hundreds of thousands of people everywhere. Everybody will have their lighter lit, holding into the air. Somebody might bust out with a chorus of "We Are the World." I'm telling you, it's going to be an event. It is going to be an event. And TV One just wants to be there. And their sponsors want them to be there. But I don't really believe, I still don't, that if decided to get into the political arena of this, guess what? You have to if you're going to cover news, you have to perform and behave like a news entity. TV One is just not all-day entertainment tonight. Or is it? So, anyway, that has me a little perturbed, as you could tell. And again, I don't want government regulations or interventions. Anyway, let's see if I have up still. I think I took it down. Well, maybe I did. Daggy nabbit. I did. On their list of pundits, they have pundits. They do have one Republican pundit on their coverage. It's comedian Cheryl Underwood. Let me back up. It's comedian Cheryl Underwood. That is the lone Republican pundit. Is this a joke or what? If it was a Mad TV or Saturday Night Live skit, it would be funny. So, Miss Underwood says, I want to get her quote. I want to get her quote because it's electric. It really is. Because she says that everyone knows. She's going to vote for Barack, though. She's going to vote for Mr. Obama. Everyone knows that Mr. Obama is going to win and she wants to be on the winning side. She considers herself a Bush Republican, so she wants to be on the winning side. So that's why. That's why she's voting for Barack, to be on the winning side. And when asked if black Republicans would be slighted by this, what she says is, I speak for all 8 of us. Like, there are only 8 black Republicans anywhere. And that will be the dissenting view. That will be the dissenting view as TV One covers the Democrat convention. That will be it. That will be the only part of fair and okay. So it'll be neither. It'll be neither fair or balanced. And I really find a problem with that. I really do. I'm really finding a problem with that. Again, and I know people are coming in the chat room, and I appreciate you coming in. We're waiting for Reverend Peterson. He just finished his show. His national show ends at noon Eastern Standard Time, and when I talked to his representatives, we decided that we would give him a little time to decompress. Get a glass of water, go to the bathroom. Whatever you have to do. Those of you who do just even do what we're doing here, a Blog Talk Radio show, knows that right after your show, it's nice to have just a few minutes to inhale and exhale without having to be talking while you're doing it. Reverend Peterson does a 3-hour show, so we're going to give him a little time to rest, and we're going to take a break in about 8 minutes, and he should be on here in a little bit. So thanks for coming. Thanks for coming to rest. I do so appreciate it. Anyway, we're going to talk about a whole bunch of things as time progresses, as the week progresses. We have another rant on tomorrow, and then our regular show on on Saturday. So we're going to talk about any number of things, and Mr. Obama's trip to the Middle East, and talking to Ahmadinejad, and then talking to the troops. But anyway, I'm sorry. I'm reading the chat room. I'm sorry. Men don't multitask. And the national shows, they have people help them. I'll write in my chat room, maybe TV One has to go to the extreme to counter the fair and balanced spin from Fox News. That's something that's interesting. That was something that I said on my rant. What if Fox News decided not to? They went the other way and did exactly what they're accused of doing. What if they simply said, we're not going to cover the Democrat convention because most of our listeners and most of our viewers are white guys. So we're only going to cover the white guy. That wouldn't work, would it? TV One doesn't have to go to the extreme to do anything. They could just do the right thing. They could just do the right thing. That's what they could do. They could not, if they are simply going to be involved in the political arena, when I'll say this one more time, then they need to behave like that. That's it. But they're not going to. They are unadmittedly biased. And if you don't believe me, I'll put this link back in the chat room, and if you're new, you can check for yourself. There you go. But ratings are a factor in news, always have been, always will be. All right. Well, I'll tell you what. Things are moving forward. Hey, listen. we're going to talk about this later because you know that I'm all about drill, and then find alternative energy sources as well. Just recently, President Bush has lifted the ban by an executive order, and I'm sure it's because he heard that one thing. I'm sure of it. I'm sure that Blog Talk Radio had an effect there. I'm going to believe that. I don't care what anybody says. I don't care what anybody says, because by executive order, the ban was lifted. And Virginia hopped in and said, we'll take some of that. And Florida is hopping in and saying, we'll take some of that. So I'm very, very encouraged and very, very excited about what's happening in that arena. As I passed a gasoline station, that a Citgo station, help me, Hugo Chavez, thank you, whose price in my town, I live here in Tampa, was $4.09 for regular. Now, what's really interesting to me about that is there was also another Hugo Chavez station, Citgo, that they've been selling regular for $3.89 a gallon for about 2 months. 2 months. You know? 2 months. And I'm wondering, how in the world can one Hugo Chavez station sell $4.09 and the other Hugo Chavez station sell theirs for $3.89? I'm sorry, Flag says keep whining. They're at $4.40 a gallon where they live. That's terrible. I think there's something else. And you know, everything that I'm talking about is a multi-pronged approach. We need to drill. We need to look for alternative energy sources. We need to make our cars run better. We need to do all these things, windmills and solar energy and operating your vehicles off potato chips, whatever it takes. Whatever it takes. Whatever it takes to make it happen. And part of that needs to be that there needs to be some investigation on price gouging. Now, in Florida, because we have hurricanes, there are laws, obvious price gouging simply for profit when we are in emergency mode due to hurricanes, and I'm wondering if and I've said that this is as much a national emergency as anything that we've ever had. So we are going to have to look at that as well. And again, without regulation or penalty other than letting people know. If the news media wants to do something for me, they need to go to these gasoline stations and find out why they're charging what they're charging and let me decide, oh, you people aren't very cool. I don't like you. I think I will get my gas from down the street. All right, we are at 32 minutes to go. We're going to take a break and going to do some work here. You know, that behind-the-scenes stuff that we get to do. And we'll be back, and hopefully we'll be back with Reverend Peterson, and we'll continue this special edition of the Rational Black Man Show. We'll be right back. All right. Hey, you guys like that song? Anybody like that song? That was Feather by a group that I used to play in. That's me. What was that? It's always a hip trip when you hear yourself playing. I just got off the phone with Reverend Peterson, and he will be calling in just a moment. Thank you for being patient. I appreciate that. So we should be able to get started. We're going to ask him a couple questions. He's going to be on for a little bit. I do apologize that I don't have a toll-free number for him to call, but we'll work all that out, no doubt. So in any case, again, we are talking about. I got a chance to talk about the new revelations of Reverend Jackson, and some of the verbiage that he uses to describe African Americans. I always find that interesting. All right, I think that he may be on. Let's see here. We're gonna click the button. And Reverend Peterson.
Yes, sir.
Welcome to the Rational Black Man Show. Thank you so much for calling.
Well, thank you for having me on. I appreciate you inviting me on.
I am a huge fan because I'm a fan of the truth, and you bring the truth unabashedly, unashamed, and without any restrictions or anything. So we appreciate you being here.
Well, it was the truth that changed my life, and I had to face that truth without excuse. And as a result, I believe without a doubt it's the truth that's going to change, Black Americans or anybody that really want to change. You have to be honest about it, and that's what I do.
Well, again, we out here know that whether we get to talk to you or not, we do appreciate it.
Thank you.
And African Americans who are in search of the truth really appreciate you being out there.
Thank you.
We were going to originally talk about some of the Juneteenth celebrations that went on, but as politics and the world started to happen, I was interested if we could shift a little bit. And as I'm watching last night the Color Purple special on TV One, I remembered that TV One is only going to cover the Democratic Convention, and Mrs. Rational, my wife, Debbie, says, "My God, it's become the Obama network," and it made me laugh, but it's true. And I said, "Well, I'm going to ask Reverend Peterson about that when I talk to him tomorrow." So I'm asking, has TV One become the Obama network?
Well, it definitely appears that it has, because if it was fair and balanced, it would cover both conventions, both Democrat and Republican convention. You have 95%, according to some of the polls, you have 95% of Black Americans supported Barack Obama. And I believe it's because he's black, and secondly because he's liberal. Because if Barack Obama was a black Republican running for president and had the chance to win, such as he has now, you wouldn't get that type of support from TV One or the average Black American.
I was talking to my listeners a little earlier, and I was saying that TV One decided they were going to celebrate African American achievement, but I didn't see any celebrating of African American achievement with Condoleezza Rice or Colin Powell or Judge Thomas. I didn't see that same excitement. So are they being disingenuous, saying that what they're all about really is celebrating Black achievement?
They are. One thing I want to say, too, about that, just imagine what would happen if a white-owned TV station decided to cover the Republican National Convention and not the Democrat, especially with a black person running for president. There would be an outrage about it. They would be calling it racism, but there's a double standard in America today. Black, godless liberals are able to do and say whatever they want and get away with it. But if white Americans were to do the same thing, they would be called racist and all that kind of stuff. But that standard is there, and it's not going to change until white folks stand up and say, and deal with the issue of race and morality when it concerns black people, because as long as they act like cowards, blacks are going to be convinced that they are racist. And you're right, there's a hatred within the black community by way of black leadership and those who follow the leadership, that black Republicans, conservative Republicans, are sellouts, that they're Uncle Tom, and they're not worthy of appreciation. And if they were, then there would be a focus on the success of Dr. Condoleezza Rice and Colin Powell and Justice Clarence Thomas and other black, Walter Williams, and others who have done very well in America. But they don't want to present those type of people because it encourages black Americans to start thinking for themselves and taking control of their own lives and realizing that it is not racism that's holding them back, but the lack of moral character.
I understand. Speaking of leadership, is there some reason? And I know I was only a teenager, a preteen actually, during the 60s and the civil rights movement, where there seemed to be some leadership in the African American. Are we suffering in the African American community because there isn't some real leadership from the appropriate African Americans?
Well, you know what? We're fortunate in that we don't have so-called black leaders anymore.
Right.
It's abnormal to look outside for someone to lead you, because when you turn your life over to a person like that, they're going to take advantage of you. What we need is for fathers and mothers to get married and by example guide their children in the right way to go. And if they are righteous people, then the children is going to emulate what the parents are. And you wouldn't have to look outside for someone else to lead you. That's what's wrong with black folks today. They are not all, of course, but most are not capable of leading or making their own decisions and doing what's right. They are waiting for another black messiah to come, and as a result, they are now jumping on the bandwagon of that of Barack Obama, thinking that they have another leader, and it's not going to change their lives in any way at all. They're not going to get better. If Barack Obama should become the president, and I'm not promoting Barack or McCain, people can vote for who they want, but I think it's a misnomer or a mistake for them to believe that this great leader is here and they're going to get better as a result. It's not going to happen. It's not going to change until they overcome their anger, stop hating, and take control of their own lives.
Well, I appreciate that, and I agree, because it seems like in my travels that when I talk to African Americans, I talk to actually just people in general, they're really looking, and I think it may be just the nature of people anymore. They're looking for somebody else to do it for them.
Yeah.
Is that what African Americans are caught up in? We're looking for somebody else to do it for us instead of doing it ourselves.
You're absolutely right, and it's ridiculous. They have a welfare mentality. They look to the government to provide for them. They look to the NAACP, the Congressional Black Caucus, Jesse Jackson, Al Sharpton, and most of these black preachers who are not called by God but by their mama to lead them. Mm-hmm. And if that doesn't happen, they're not capable of moving forward. When you read the history of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., I don't see, now if it was there, I don't see it. I don't see any indication where he tried to take control of the people's lives and lead them. He tried to make it right so that they are protected by the law, but not lead the people. But when Dr. King was assassinated, the so-called civil rights who were left behind took a message of self-control and of being governed by your character, and they perverted it and gave black Americans the impression that they need physical leaders to lead them. But they don't need that. They need to find it within themselves. And you hear black men crying out for physical leaders, and that is abnormal. I don't even see how a black woman can respect a man who is looking for some other man to lead him. It's not the normal state of being, but it is the mentality of black Americans.
And all this leads to, and I don't want to waste our time because I really want to know more about the organization. All this leads to why you started Bond, because you're building the family through building up the man. Could you explain on how that started and your current involvement and what Bond's up to?
Bond is the brotherhood organization of a new destiny, and our purpose is to rebuild the family by rebuilding the man. We've been around for 18 and a half years. We have a home for young men that we bring in from around the country. We show them how to overcome their anger, finish school, start businesses, find jobs. We encourage them to get married before having children out of wedlock. We have an after-school character building program where we deal with the character of the boys in school. We teach them how to work hard in school and have self-control, counseling, and all kind of good stuff. And we're doing it without the help of the government. I am 100% sure that if we can turn men, and we work with all men, but our primary focus is on the black man, I have no doubt that if we can turn them back to God and get them to love what's right more than they do themselves, their woman, or their children, then God will guide them and things will start to change within the black community. We're encouraging them to turn away from the false black leaders and learn to judge people based on character and not color. And it's working well. We have boys graduating from colleges, and they're starting businesses. They're getting married. We work with girls. We work with women, females too, but our primary focus is on the male.
Because that would seem, in today's current culture, that would seem to be, how they say, old school, old-fashioned, that maybe we should be more hip, that maybe it isn't all about the man, as I hear so many black women say. It would seem to me that what you've decided to do is go back to a more scriptural approach to building families and not putting all the benefits on the man, obviously, but basically all the responsibility for the family on the man. Is that at the core of what Bond is all about?
Well, there is a spiritual order to life ordained by God, and that order is God in Christ, Christ in man, man over woman, and woman over children. It's a spiritual order, and the man's responsibility is to protect his wife and children spiritually first, so that the world doesn't come in and seduce them in the wrong way. And he is also to provide for his family, physical needs as well. And you don't have that happening for the most part in the black community. And as a result of that, it's easy for the world to come in and seduce the woman and children and take them down the wrong path. Now, the average black woman, not all, but the average black woman has been so puffed up, her ego is so puffed up, she's been made to believe that she's better than the man, that she's somehow another queen, and she deserves to be in control. And that's not true, because if you look at it, black women who are controlling their homes are setting their children up to fail in life. They're angry, they're joining gangs, they're committing crimes, they're turning to be gay, their diseases are everywhere, they don't respect the elderly, and that is because the influence of a woman is very weak and destructive, but the influence of a man is strong and powerful, and it gives its life rather than take its life. And that's been ordained by God, not by Jessie. And until we come back to that order, things are not going to get better, they're only going to get worse.
Okay, and it's great that you say that, because it's been and I can use my life as the example as I look through the women in my life, especially as an adult. Those women those African American women in particular, who are single, do seem to let me switch. Have we elevated the status of the single, especially in the African American community, of the single mother? Have we elevated status to to royalty somehow. And before you answer, my mom was a single mom because, quite frankly, my father didn't do what he was supposed to do, right. And there were reasons. So she didn't start out wanting to be a single mother. She right. ended up being a single mother. But there seems to be elevation of the single mother in the African American community that's being elevated to royalty status.
You're absolutely right about that. And, you know, in the Bible it says, woe unto the person that call good evil and evil good. And they are calling this, having these children out of wedlock, single parents in the home, good. And it's bad because it's never going to work. It's not in the woman's nature to raise children alone. She needs a father there because of the power that lies within him, and kids tend to obey that. But they are brainwashing these women by building on their ego and giving them a false sense of power, which would never work. If you notice, over the last 50 years or so, the average black child been raised without a father in the home, and they're angry, and that anger is not coming from the father, it's coming from the mothers, because the fathers are not around to even pass on this anger. But this woman is on an ego trip. The government made her feel she doesn't need a man, and now these false black preachers and so-called leaders are making them feel that way so that they can get the money from them. And it's that ego that is bringing on the destruction. And it is being called good, but it's an awful mistake that is happening. It should be a shame in having children out of wedlock, but the shame has been taken away.
You know, you mentioned right then that the government has encouraged children out of wedlock. And I think by the same token, and I'll ask if you agree, it's also discouraged marriages because of how the assistance was set up. There were so many times that you get less help if you are married, if you go ahead and do the right thing. And it put people in an economic situation where getting married just didn't work economically for these people. So not having enough, whatever they needed to do to move forward, it was okay that the father wasn't there in a lot of our communities.
Well, and you're right about that. That's why the government is anti-God, anti-family, anti-anything that's good. And if men were men and got married before having children, they would not allow their wife and children to depend on the government. They would make the sacrifices that is needed to be made in order to protect their families from the government rather than submitting them to the government, because the government is set up to destroy the family and cause you to depend on them in order to control you. It is abnormal to depend on the government. It's we the people, not we the government.
I appreciate that. I have one more thing to ask, because I thought about this week, and because it was in the news and it came before me, and I watched Mr. Obama's speech about parenting, and I went back and watched some clips of Mr. Cosby's speech on parenting. Now, what I remember, now I'm asking if you remember the same thing. I remember Bill Cosby being castigated and hung out to dry as a black heretic for asking parents to do the unmentionable job of parenting their children. Yeah. But just a few days ago, Mr. Obama was elevated and lauded for saying essentially the same thing. Did you find that to be true?
You are absolutely right. I remember when Bill Cosby was the darling of the black community. They loved him. But as soon as he came out and repudiated the family for not being responsible, all of a sudden he became the enemy of the black community, especially by the black so-called leadership. And that is because they don't want black Americans to wake up. They don't want them to take control of their lives, because if they did, then the black leadership is going to end up on the welfare line. They're going to end up on the soup line. Barack Obama, you're right, corrected or repudiated the black Americans for not being good parents. But if you notice, it was more on the black man than it was the black woman. He repudiated the black man by saying that they act like boys and they need to be responsible for their children. He did not necessarily repudiate the black woman. And so if he had said that they were wrong too, there would have been more of an outcry. But when you attack the man, there is not an outcry, but because there is a hatred in this country today of masculinity, and that there is an effort to degrade him and make him look worse than what he is because of who he represents. And so that's one of the reasons that you didn't hear primary outcry about, even though you did hear some, Jackson, and you just heard Jackson complain about it, even though he didn't realize he was on tape. But he complained about it a little bit. But there is a hatred of masculinity today, so that's why there wasn't a big outcry about it from Barack Obama statements.
And of course, so what? And I hadn't thought about it quite that way. But what you're saying is that it's okay, and it's still okay to attack masculinity.
Yeah.
But it's even more okay to attack masculinity in the African American community because of their lack of political clout, their lack of economic clout, social clout. Okay.
I totally agree. And they know that the average black man is not going to stand up and defend himself anyway. He's so feminized and he feels so hopeless that he doesn't know how to stand up and fight back, stand up for what is right, stand up for masculinity. Hopefully, that will start to change, and that's what we're trying to do, is to encourage men to be men and let them know that it's okay to be a man, it's okay to be masculine, and it's okay to disagree with folks when they attack your masculinity, because a lot of them don't know how to do it. They're afraid of being called a woman hater and all this kind of stuff, or losing something, so that men don't stand up and defend themselves.
Wow. That seems to be a problem, and I believe it. And I taught in the public school system for a little bit. I think it starts anymore in the public school system.
Yeah.
Because even little, and we're not talking about just African American men. We're talking about men in general. Boys are simply not allowed to be boys. Boys run around. Boys push each other. Boys do all those things. But when you have women teaching these boys, they just can't understand why they don't sit down and behave like little girls.
They want to turn them into girls. They want to degrade them because of who they represent. Whether we like it or not, accept it or not, admit it or not, the male represents God on earth. He is not God, but he represents him. God is strong. He is patient. He's wise. He leads the way. He doesn't depend on others. And that's what masculinity is all about. And these folks hate that idea, and they're doing all that they can do to destroy it. I think that Barack Obama is right, though, when he says that parents have to be responsible, but he needs to lay out the whole thing if he's sincere about it.
I appreciate that. Reverend Peterson, I know you just did 3 hours of your own show. Yeah. If you could tell and I appreciate you being here, because I only do an hour at a time, and I need a nap after an hour.
You're right. So I'm glad to be on with you, though. It's no problem. Thank you for having me.
I really appreciate it. But if you could let my listeners know when your show's on, and I'm here in Tampa, so I have that you're on WTIS 1110 on 2 to 3 on Saturday.
Right.
In our area. Is there a place where they can go and find out when your show is going to be on, so they can listen to you and read your writings?
Yeah, they can go to my website at www.bondinfo.org, BONDINFO.org, bondinfo.org, or call 1-800-411-2663, 1-800-411-BOND. And we're on Monday through Friday from 6 a.m. to 9 a.m. Pacific Standard Time and 9 to noon Eastern Standard Time. And the listing of the stations are there on my website. They can also listen to it live. If they're not getting it by way of radio, they can listen to it live on my website there. Well, we're with VCY American Network.
Okay, awesome. That is great. And I can't, it's funny when and I must tell you that when I was on my way into the studio today, and I was telling my wife that this was going to happen, And I had to tell her that I was indeed starstruck. I am. As I'm growing in this, I'm finding that I'm communicating with people like you, people like Walt Williams, and really getting encouraged and edified and built up. And I can't tell you how much I appreciate what you do and who you are.
Well, the same for you, man. Thank you for that. And I'm glad that you're out there because, we are like-minded people, and we will come together eventually. And the more we spread the truth out there, I have the confidence that a change is going to come. And so we need all of us out there telling the truth. And, we don't resent what we see. We don't judge the folk, but we tell the truth in order that a change may come for the good. And so I appreciate meeting you and knowing that you're out there doing this, and whatever I can do to help, I'm willing to do it.
I appreciate that. And I would like to have you back around Christmas time because I know you have a view on Kwanzaa that you need to share with my listeners.
Well, I would love to do it. Just call Ernest and set it up, and I'll be happy to be on with you.
Thank you so much. And again, I think thank you for coming on, and I'm sure everyone appreciated it. Hey, listen, we only got about 30 seconds to go. This has been a treat for me. I don't know if my feet are going to touch the ground the rest of the day. I got to go. We have church service this afternoon, and Pastor was going to ask me about how this was going to go, and I think he'll see thing on my face, sounding like Moses when he came down from the mount. Again, thank you again, Reverend Peterson. God bless you, and all the things that you are doing, and we appreciate you. Thanks for coming to the Rational Black Man Show. We are out. Reverend Peterson?
Yes, sir.
Thank you again.
All right, thanks for having me on. I enjoyed it.
God bless you and have an awesome rest of the day.
Thank you. You too, buddy.
Bye-bye now.
Bye.